So, welcome back to North Point Online. So, really good to be here with you today. You look back behind me, this is our stage in our auditorium, and I just want to say if you are listening and you are anywhere close to Louisville, Texas, come on and join us sometime. We would love to see you in person, love to meet you, love to reconnect with you, whatever that happens to be. But just know that no matter what, we still we love you, and really consider you part of our church family, no matter where we connect with you at. We've been studying about taking care of our hearts, looking at our hearts, this center of who we are. And there's a story in the Old Testament where God has this interaction, this conversation with Samuel, the prophet. And he says this in 1 Samuel 16, verse 7. Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. They were looking for a king, and Samuel had kind of rounded up a bunch of really good-looking prospects. God says, I don't look at people that way. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. That's what I want to talk about today for a few minutes. You know what? We evaluate people in really predictable ways. What they look like, their race, their heritage, what kind of abilities they have, what places in their life they have experienced successes or failures. We look at their possessions, what kind of vehicle they drive, or what kind of house they live in. Sometimes we even look at their beliefs, though I don't think that's as big a deal for people much anymore. But this verse of Scripture, this line in Scripture says that that's how human beings interact with each other, but God looks at our heart. He sees something entirely deeper and even different than what we see. So remember, the heart is not just the center of our emotions. It's not where our feelings are generated from, at least not exclusively. But rather our heart in Jewish way of thinking would have been the intersection of all those things that make us who we are. It's the intersection of our thinking and our feeling and our decision making and really our essence and our identity all come kind of converging in this one spot that Hebrew thinkers and writers called that the heart. It is the place inside of us that makes us uniquely different from plants and mountains and oceans and animals. It's what sets us apart as human beings, is that we have a heart and a center and an essence that is unlike any other created matter. And what is so awesome about this is that it is our heart that allows us to personally relate to our Creator. That's how this works. And that is what God sees when He sees me. Oh yeah, I think in some human fashion, He sees that I have a bald head and a goatee and I'm a little overweight and I like to wear tennis shoes. I think He sees all of that, surely. But He sees something much deeper than that veneer. He sees below that and sees the real me. He sees my heart. And what I want to suggest to you today is that our hearts are worth protecting. There's a proverb in the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 23. It says this: above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Other translations say it a little differently. Watch over your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the well springs of life. Or guard your heart above all else, for your heart determines the course of your life. So we're told in the Bible to take care of our heart, to guard our heart. It's where life comes from. It's where good comes from. So protect it and watch it and preserve it and keep it from danger. Put up a blockade around it. Build a wall. Create a safety net. If there is anything that you want to protect in your life, God says, protect your heart. My heart is who I really am. My heart is not just what people see, but my heart is who I am when nobody's looking. It's the center of everything that I am. It's that part that houses the real me. And I got to tell you today, it is more than worth protecting. And don't misunderstand this. Protecting is not about closing off. It's not about taking the real who I am and pushing it away so nobody gets close to it. It's really quite different. It's not about keeping people at arm's length and avoiding the risks that come from real, true human relationship. This is not about developing a hard heart. It's quite the opposite of that. It's about protecting our hearts so that our ability to love others will grow, so that our ability to love God will grow. We're to guard our hearts because that is where life comes from. So let me remind you of the obvious today. Look, this is the principle of life that we learn from childhood. And it's this: don't let a problem get swept under the rug. Just ignoring a problem does not solve it. It just covers it up, and it festers and it grows, and it becomes an even greater problem later. When something is wrong with your heart, when you see something wrong with your actions or your motives or your thoughts, you need to deal with it. I need to deal with it. Don't ignore it. Look, this is how it goes. Simple anger, if left unchecked, it will turn to bitterness. And bitterness eventually will turn to hatred. And hatred will build walls. And walls create loneliness and separation. And I just got to tell you, loneliness is an epidemic in our culture. Used to be it was just men that I was really worried about, but it seems as if these days it is happening with just as much frequency to women as they pull away and guard their heart in an unhealthy way by pulling back instead of dealing with what's going on. Jealousy, if left unchecked, will turn to discontent. We talked about that last week. And discontent, if you live with it for any amount of time, can turn into just about anything. It can turn into lust or to worry. And worry can turn to doubt, and doubt can turn into a lack of faith. Lack of faith will cause somebody to pull away from God and others. Pride turns to judgment. Judgment turns to self-centeredness. Self-centeredness turns to greed. We read in Scripture that greed greed can turn into all sorts of problems. So we've just got to guard our hearts. The thing about it is, nobody else will do it for you. When you're little, yeah, your mom and dad tried to protect your little heart from getting broken. No, nobody does that anymore. That's our responsibility, our personal responsibility. In a physical sense, the heart is the most important organ in our body. Blood and oxygen flow through our hearts to all other parts of our body. If our heart stops to function, we die. We just die. In a spiritual sense, the heart is everything also. It's the center of who we are, and life flows through it, and life flows out of it as surely as blood flows through our veins and into our heart and out to the rest of our body. I'm saying the obvious here. If you find cancer, you've got to cut it out and kill it. You've got to get rid of it, or it will kill you. If you have weeds in your lawn, you've got to pull them. You've got to put chemicals on. You've got to get rid of them. Otherwise, the weeds will overtake your entire lawn and kill it. I was thinking about this because it happens to all of us. You know those times that you get a smell in your refrigerator? And at first glance or first sniff, you kind of smell it, and then you go looking for it, and you go, nah, it's probably just something in my nose, or it's out there. And then all of a sudden, each time you open up the refrigerator door, it grows and it builds, and man, you got to get rid of that smell. You got to get rid of the source. And the same is true for those things that pose danger to my sacred identity. Here, parents, let me give you this. You want to know the best way, maybe the only thing that you can possibly do to protect your own kids' spiritual life in this world? You don't put up walls around them. You don't pull them away from those things. You want to know the best way to build a heart in a young person that's receptive to the message of Jesus in the world in a way that they want to embrace that as their own? Take care of yourself and show them. It's not my job. It's not our children's ministry's job to do that. It is your job to live out your faith. And you live out your faith by guarding your heart, and you show people how to do that. Show your kids how to do that. Proverbs 4, a couple of verses later after the guard your heart spot, the writer of this proverb wrote these words: "Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways." Parents and everybody else, take those two verses and just impress them on your heart, into your memory, so that you can ask questions of yourself regularly, like, what is the substance of my conversations? What is the substance of the things that I post on Facebook or Instagram? What is coming out of me that people see? What are you reading? What are you watching? What are you filling your mind and your heart with? Where are you going? Who are you spending time with? What's the purpose of spending time with them? Where is your focus? These are questions we have to ask. This is simple, basic stuff for people of faith. People often talk, to me, you probably talk to each other this way, about how difficult it is to have faith in this world right now. Feels like we're often beaten down by philosophers and pop psychologists or the liberal learned of our world and popular atheists. It just feels like they are pounding and pounding and pounding away at us. We find ourselves often unable to give rational, intelligent answers to difficult questions that are posed to us, even by our friends and by our society in general. And honestly, sometimes our kids ask us questions that are really, really, really difficult for us to answer. But I've always looked at it this way. If I want to be a guitar player or a trumpet player, if I want to be a baseball pitcher, if I want to be a doctor, look, it's not going to happen just by wishing it. It's not going to happen by spending a few minutes here and there trying to, learn how to do arthroscopic surgery so that I can do somebody's total knee replacement because they want it done cheaper. That's not how you learn how to do that. It takes a lifetime of diligence and study. It won't happen without a lot of book, a lot of thinking, a lot of practice, a lot of experience. And you know as well as I do that this is simple, logical, common sense stuff. Yet with matters of faith, we often leave our hearts unguarded and sometimes spend little to even no time at all cultivating a life of faith with the same kind of attention and determination we do to other things. So I want to close today, and I want to remind you of this. This is not about me inflicting guilt or trying to create a bunch of law keepers so that we can turn into a bunch of rule breakers. Today is just a reminder to guard the most important part of who you are. Because out of our heart flows who we are, the real us, the one that gets to respond to Jesus. Hebrews chapter 12, the author writes these words, verses 1 and 2, chapter 12. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer or the author and perfecter of our faith. So I was pondering that this week. My mind went directly to one thing. I'm going to do something right now that I never do here, not online or not in person. But just listen to this. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. Seems so old-fashioned and sentimental to put something so profound into this little poem. Well, it's not just a poem. Those are the lyrics to a song that I sang the first third of my life pretty regularly. That song that's spinning in my head right now, it does seem old-fashioned and traditional compared to the more modern and hip ways that we sing about Jesus these days. But you know what's funny about that is that even though I have not sung that song in over 40 years, I've not sung it. I don't think I have even heard it anywhere. I remembered the words and the melody like I had just sung them yesterday. And they're just as fresh and just as challenging and just as true today as they were decades ago. And those things went from my head to my heart, and they have stayed there my entire life. Those words, that song, that melody, it's part of what has guarded my heart all of these years. I hope you're able to do that someday with some words, maybe out of the Bible, out of some of the songs that we sing. Let's remember that. Let's remember to fix our eyes on Jesus. Let's do it as we share in the bread and the juice of the Lord's Supper today, yet again. Fix your eyes on Jesus this week. Until next time, see you.
Your love is like radiant diamonds bursting inside us. We cannot contain. Your love will surely come find us like blazing wildfire, singing your name. God of mercy, sweet love of mine, I have surrendered to your design. May this offering stretch across the skies. These hallelujahs be multiplied. Your love is like radiant diamonds bursting inside us.